So Bharat should be joining us in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just looking at some of the questions that have been coming in so far. There's an LBW decision between myself and Jay Wardner. Not sure that actually happened at the Wanderers, but anyway, maybe they want to be specific about what type of game that was. I don't remember that one. I do remember one or two in Sri Lanka, of course. IPL in the UAE, look, a wonderful opportunity for the people in the UAE, but you won't have the fans, that's for sure.
It's quite unfortunate that a decent number of players from Chennai Super Kings have been tested positive, players and staff.
Just excuse me for 30 seconds.
Sure. Hi Bharat, good afternoon.
Hello. Participants are coming in.
Yes, so we have about 100 in right now. Give it a couple of minutes and then we can get started.
Hello, Mr. President.
You can just call me Bharat. Hi, Simon. How are you?
Nice to meet you virtually.
Meet you too.
Now, what is that virtual background that you've got?
I don't know. It's probably Hyde Park in London. I'm not sure.
Actually, I think you might be right. Looking at the bench over your left shoulder, I think you might be right.
Probably. So where are you right now, Simon? Are you in Australia?
Well, yeah. So I've done my virtual background at Bradman Oval. So if I just stand off to the side, that's the pavilion at Bradman Oval, which is about 3 minutes up the road from where I live.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So probably about almost where my left shoulder is where Sachin landed by helicopter about 4 years ago to come and visit. And that's almost what sort of day we've had today. It's beautiful blue skies, and we have spring starting next week, so it's magnificent weather. And yeah.
Last year there were a lot of fires across Australia, right? Is there a concern that it may happen again this year?
Well, we've had a lot of rain over the last couple of months, to be honest. All of our dams are now full, or the tanks, as you would know them, are now full. So we've gone from extreme heat, bushfires and drought to too much water now in less than 12 months. It's amazing in this country.
Nice.
Yeah. And where are you based, Bharat?
I'm currently in Hyderabad, but otherwise I'm based in Visakhapatnam, where our university is headquartered. We have 2 other campuses in Hyderabad and in Bangalore. And have you ever umpired in Visakhapatnam? We have a stadium there.
Yes, I've done one match there. I did an ODI there, and I love Hyderabad. I love going to Paradise.
Nice.
Paradise restaurant.
Paradise is close to the new stadium.
Love the biryani.
Yeah. Arun,
Should we get started?
Time for the participants, or should we get started?
So I'll probably just get started with a small introduction of sorts, and then you can take it over from there.
Sure.
So firstly, hello everybody. Very good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for a very special webinar on the occasion of National Sports Day. We have had a very engaging sports week at GITAM so far. It is certainly encouraging to see the support and participation from the students and staff alike. So this is merely a glimpse of all the positive changes and all the all-round development that lay ahead of us. And for today's session, we have someone who needs no introduction to most Indians and to cricket fans across the globe. This certainly is the showstopper event, or the icing on the cake, as far as this edition of GITAM Sports Week goes. And we also have GITAM's president, Mr. Sri Bharat, amongst us, and he has agreed to moderate this session. I hope you're all ready for a very interesting and a very informative webinar. With that, over to you, Bharat. I mean, you can probably get started with whatever you have to say.
Thanks, Arun. Welcome to GITAM, Simon. We're glad to have you speaking to our students. And just to give you some context, since COVID has come, I think all of us have had to transition to working online, similar to maybe a lot of speaking engagements that you've been used to. And our challenge is how do we engage students virtually? And not just in terms of academics, but in all of the different domains. And Arun is a new leader that's joined us a few months ago. And he's comes from a sports background, as I must have told you. And unlike maybe the US and some other countries that you may have visited, India doesn't have a very professional sports network at the collegiate level. And that's something that we would like to impact both internally in GITAM and also across universities in the country. We don't expect that to have any drastic changes in the short term, but we'd like to invest into what we believe is good inside GITAM. And in terms of GITAM, I don't know how much context Arun has given you, but we have about 23,000 students. And we have quite a few of them who play sports, but I think the potential is largely untapped. We do want to build a much stronger sports culture and bring in more students into playing, but it could be two different tracks. One is more people who want to play out of recreational interest and want to enjoy it during their time in college, and some others who are actually athletes who come into the college as athletes, continue to play professionally, and we create an ecosystem for them to sort of thrive. So that's the context. And today, obviously, welcome to the participants. Many of you are much younger than us, but if you have grown up watching cricket, I'm sure you've at least watched a few matches where Simon has umpired. Simon, what's the last international match that you umpired? 2012, 11?
2012, the T20 World Cup final between West Indies and Sri Lanka.
Right.
And yeah, and then I did the IPL final after that in 2013. Well, I think it was Sachin's last IPL as well.
Right. So most of our students were around 12, 13 at the time. So I'm sure some of them were watching cricket, but if they've watched replays, I'm sure they know you. And I mean, yeah, I've grown up seeing you, and we always loved you as an umpire, as being someone who is very respected, has a lot of integrity, and in general has a very good eye. So you take good decisions, and sort of the recognition that you got speaks to it, right? Winning the Umpire of the Year award 5 years in a row from 2004 to 2008. I think Alimdar broke your record in 2009.
Yeah, but he's only won 3, but what's in a number? That's good.
So I'll open it up to you a little bit, Simon. We'd like to understand your journey, what made you interested in getting into umpiring.
Sure.
Maybe about 10 minutes or so, and then I'll get into a few questions, and then we'll get into the audience and take their questions.
Yeah, lovely. Look, I've got a presentation to work through, and I'm very happy for you to be able to jump in, throw some questions. This session really is for you, and it's for the students, and it's great to see over 220 students online now. So, Dhanyawad, Shukriya, Nandri. It's really nice to be with you all, and I'm looking forward to sharing some stories, but also engaging and interacting with your students, and enjoying the next hour or so with everyone on board. So I'm just going to share my screen, because I'm going to show you some photographs and one short video as well, which hopefully will just add that sporting flavour to some of the key messages. But for those students who have just joined us, I'm coming from Don Bradman's hometown in Barrel, southern New South Wales, and that's Bradman Oval behind me that you can see on the virtual screen. And it was only a couple of days ago that Don Bradman actually had what would have been his 112th birthday, where Shane Warne's baggy green cap was presented to the museum to be in display with some other famous baggy green caps throughout the history of Australian cricket. And I would really encourage, once lockdown finishes and international borders open up again, I would obviously encourage any international students from India particularly to come and visit the International Hall of Fame in Bradman's home ground and really soak up the cricket tradition and the sports tradition that is essentially Australia. So I'm going to share my screen with you all now. to be able to take you through some of those things, but up that you were asking about my journey. This session for me has been titled "It's Just Not Cricket," and we've heard that.
I mean, your voice is a little bit low. Can you speak up a little bit louder, please?
Sure. Okay. This session is titled "It's Just Not Cricket," and I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour as to what we can get out of sport, what we can get out of cricket, and how that applies to what we do. You know, which is whether it's being a student, whether it's being an educator, or whether it's being a father or a mother or a brother or a sister, or someone who's got a part-time job. So let's go through some of this material. Hang on a sec. I'm just going to stop that share for a sec because I've actually got, for some reason, 2 PowerPoint slides open, so just bear with me a sec.
That's okay.
Okay, so let me do that again, and I'm just going to share my screen again. The wonders of technology. So we're going to do DRS here. DRS means don't ring Simon. So first of all, look, happy National Sports Day in India. And sport is really relevant in our lives. Why? Because sport really teaches us a lot about ourselves. Sport is a vehicle for us to express our talents, but to also pick up on a lot of those life skills, the teamwork, the friendships, the camaraderie, resilience, preparation, conflict, handling pressure, and I'm going to touch on some tips to handle pressure a little bit later on. But sport should be part of our lives. Not only does it help us grow our physical fitness when we participate, but it also extends our mindset and makes us a lot more resilient and capable of handling a lot of the challenges that life throws at us. So sport really should be, for me, part of life, not just to watch it, although we can actually analyse it, but to participate in it and to enjoy everything that it's got to offer. For the students that are listening to this now, I'd really love you to concentrate and connect with the fact that you and I have a lot in common right here, right now. We speak the same language. Cricket is a great connector. Sport is a great connector. And when I come back to India, and I would love to be doing this session face-to-face rather than virtually, but cricket really unites us because we speak that common language of our love of sport. And I know that when I do visit India, the warmth and the affection and the relationships that have been built through cricket are really valuable, not only to me, but to everyone who participates at the elite level. As I said, I've been where you are now. 30 years ago, I was doing a university degree at UTS in Sydney. I did 1 year of a Bachelor of Business degree majoring in marketing. And some of you might be surprised to know, but after 1 year of that degree, I decided to stop. Why did I decide to stop? Because I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't what I wanted to do ultimately. I felt a little bit of pressure from my mother. I come from a divorced family, and mum really wanted me to go places, do things, and to exceed and be successful in business. But it was a really tough conversation I had to have with her to say, I'm actually stopping this university degree after 1 year. I picked up the newspaper the following day, got a job, and the rest is history, as they say. But maybe you'll ask me a question about that later on. During the next hour, I promise you that I will give you some insights and some tips that hopefully will help you not only become a better student, or not a better engineer, or maybe a better doctor, but more particularly a better person, a better friend, a better brother, a better sister. And I'm going to talk about some transferable skills and some of the advantages that sport's got to offer, because for me, sport not only develops character, but it also reveals character as well. And none of us are a finished item. You know, sport is a way of actually self-improvement. And I would like to share some of those lessons with you. Many of you would like to know why I took up umpiring. You know, something I don't tell a lot of people is actually I became a cricket umpire before most people knew it. I started out at an indoor cricket centre. Some of you may know the name Barry Knight. Barry Knight played Test cricket for England, and I actually started umpiring at Barry Knight's indoor cricket centre when I was about 16, 17, and would do 3 games of an evening time. And I was playing cricket outdoor as well, and I had a back injury and I stopped playing cricket. And one of my mates said, "Why don't you become an umpire?" We both did the course. I passed the course, he failed the course, and I gave umpiring a go. So I'm an accidental umpire. It wasn't what I chose to do initially. But some of the things I'm going to show you and talk about, those soft skills, if you apply those soft skills, it doesn't matter what you put your mind to, there's a good chance you're going to be good at it. But when I answer this question, I normally tell people why I did not take up umpiring. I didn't take umpiring for the girls. I didn't take umpiring for, you know, the glitz and the glamour of the international IPL scene. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the best I could be. I didn't take up umpiring simply to make lots of money. In fact, I left umpiring at a relatively young age of 41, but at that stage I'd been umpiring for 23 years. So I needed a change. I needed a new challenge, and that's one of the reasons why I gave up umpiring. I could have stayed on, I could have kept umpiring, but it wasn't about building a bank account. And I did not take up umpiring for the awards. But you mentioned those 5 awards. They were fantastic. They're obviously very important to the people that supported me, my coaches, my family, my friends. But at the end of the day, it's just a trophy. It's not why I took up umpiring. And we are a team. And it's actually quite awkward for me to receive individual awards when I participate in a team sport. I took up umpiring to be the best I could be. I took up umpiring because I wanted a challenge. I took up umpiring because I wanted to contribute and give something back to the game and participate in the game in a different way. And I love sport and I love cricket, and I just did my best. So the messages I'd really love to really resonate through the group listening to this podcast, this webinar, would be, it's really important that you do what you want to do because you like it. Do what you love and love what you do. And don't do things because other people are telling you to do them or you feel obliged or pressurized to do them. Because when you do things that you want to do, it doesn't seem like work. It doesn't seem like a chore. And more than likely, you're going to be very successful at it because you're just passionate about it. And that word passion, plus self-belief, plus hard work, really leads us to actually be successful over a longer period of time. So for those mathematicians, those engineers out there who love formulas, that's a really good formula that you might want to think about. And for me, it's about always stretching yourself, and it's about going that extra mile to be able to go places you haven't been before. And I love trying new things that I've never done before. It was less than a year ago that I sat down and wrote my first book. I'd never done that before. I've been an umpire selector. I've been an umpire's coach. I've been an umpire's trainer. I've been an umpire themselves. I love going places where I haven't been before and developing new skills, but also learning more about myself along the way. So what does sport teach us? And what can I share with you from a cricket umpire's perspective about how sport has taught me things on the field of play? Well, sports taught me to be, I suppose, adaptive and resilient to different conditions, particularly around heat. And India is a very hot country, like Australia sometimes. But it also teaches us a lot about how to look after ourselves. So eating the right foods, drinking plenty of water, being physically fit to be able to handle the challenges of a 5-day test match in very hot conditions. Sport can teach us those skills. Sport can also teach us how to work with people that we're not used to working with. You know, Steve Buckner is old enough to be my father. He comes from a different cultural background. He comes from a different demographic. Now, I don't have to like Steve and I don't have to be his best mate. That would be a great outcome, and that would be a real bonus and a plus for me. And Steve is a really, really good man. He really is a genuine character, but he's very different to me. And sport teaches us how to work more effectively with other people, because we don't choose who to work with. Just like we don't choose who our next door neighbours are. And sometimes we don't choose who we work with, and we certainly don't choose who our family members are. So we've got to make a connection point with each of these people to be able to work effectively with them and focus on that team success that I talked about. Sport also teaches us how to cope with different environmental challenges. That's a picture at Lord's. And as you can see, we're playing a test match and we've got a big storm coming, but it also teaches us how to focus on the right things at the right time. And while that environment's changing around us, for me, it's really important to stay focused on the cricket ball and what's happening in front of me, and not really, think about the future too much, but to stay connected to the present. So sport teaches us how to control our minds as well. That picture on screen now is a bit of an explosion that happened in Faisalabad one day during a test match between Pakistan and England. Now, that was an unusual event, and sport also teaches us how to respond quickly, to think on our feet, and it also teaches us how to prepare for unplanned events. And for me, I do a whole different session around what is world-class preparation. And in this case, it's about planning for the what-ifs. Now, sometimes you can plan and prepare as much as you like, but then something happens that you just never thought was going to happen. And here we are. But sport can actually teach you how to adapt. It can teach you how to respond at a short moment's notice, and then be able to choose and make the right decision and take the right option given the circumstances that you're confronting. This is a match that I did in Mumbai between England and India, and sport taught me a couple of things here on the field of play. It teaches me about how breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. And obviously I'm having a very strong discussion with Munaf Patel here, and I'm trying to manage a conflict situation between Olay Shah and him. But sport has taught me around embracing culture, which I'll get to in a second, but also about learning language and knowing that what Munaf said on that occasion was really important. And it taught me how to help diffuse conflict and help manage conflict, because you can never eliminate conflict. And I do a session particularly around, fighting is optional. Fighting is optional, but conflict is inevitable. Conflict will always happen, but you don't have to bring that to a fight. It can be managed more and more effectively. Sports also taught me to enjoy myself on the field of play, and some of you might remember this moment back in 2008 when Yuvraj hit 6 sixes off Stuart Broad in South Africa, in Durban. And it's a real privilege to be part of elite sport when those moments in history happen. But sport teaches me about enjoying the moment and embracing the opportunity, and not just having it all business, and not just being totally focused on everything that's business related. But we need to actually enjoy what we do, because if we don't enjoy it, it's going to be a lot of hard work. But off the field, sport teaches me some lessons. Here's an example of me sitting next to some lions in Zimbabwe back around 2003-04. And sport teaches me off the field about courage. To be able to sit next to these big lions and be able to feel comfortable in their presence, and to have the courage to be able to walk with them is a really interesting skill to learn. And to put your trust and faith in your team members around you, that things will be okay and they're there to support you if something untoward were going to happen. But sport teaches us that lesson too. I talked about relationships and being able to enjoy things. Well, off the field as well, we do get some downtime, and being able to relax, being able to have a joke, being able to enjoy each other's company. Because for me in sport, if you're a team off the field, you're more than likely going to be a team on the field. So in your educational institution, around the campus, when you get back to the campus, if you are able to network, build relationships outside of the lecture theatre, the tutorial rooms, then when the crunch comes in those moments inside while you're doing those lectures, those tutorials, you'll be able to leverage off those relationships and that sense of teamwork that you've already built up. Off the field, look, you recognise the Taj Mahal there, but again, what sport has taught me here is that we're all different. And that's represented by the different coloured shirts that we had in the 2011 Cricket World Cup. You know, I've got a couple of people there from India. I've got a couple of people there from Sri Lanka. You know, we are all different, and we've got to embrace that diversity of thinking, and respect the fact that we're not all the same. And that doesn't make us right or wrong, but we need to listen and understand people's points of difference. And I can't stress that enough. And sport helps us do that. Remember, we're speaking the cricket language. It's one thing that unites us. And in a country like India, where there might be 27 to 35 or even more different types of languages and states, it's the one thing that brings our country together. And it's really, really important to celebrate and understand that diversity and be inclusive. Sport also teaches us to laugh about ourselves. And here's a picture of myself and Daryl Harper. This one was actually taken in Kanpur, but we're a little bit naive about the headdress that we were wearing at the time. We didn't realise that basically by putting those hats on, that when we walked back in the hotel, the people had thought that we'd married each other. That was not the case. We had not married each other, but what we did was we embraced the different culture that Kanpur had to offer. We went down to the bazaar, we haggled with the local market holders and storekeepers, and we just had a good time. And sport really is about that too. Now, this is a picture of my family back in 2012 in my last international series, where I took my family to Sri Lanka. And the reason I show you that is because it's important for me to bring my family on my cricketing journey with me. It's important to involve them in the journey. But it also reminds me that I have two families. I have a family here at home, and I have a family in sport. I have a family in cricket. And you can see some of those family on the screen as well. And it's really important for me to actually celebrate both families and give both families equal consideration and importance. And that's an advantage, because when I travel the world, I still connect with these people and enjoy their company, and we reminisce over old memories, and we create some new memories as well. It's fantastic. And off the field, sport teaches us about how to, I suppose, connect with different backgrounds again. You know, here I am meeting President Modi, I think it was back in 2014, 15-ish, when he came to Australia. And to be able to be an advocate for sport, to be able to share stories, make people laugh, hopefully pass lessons on like we're doing today, but more importantly, influence our decision makers about how important sport is and why they should devote some investment from their budgets into creating a future of participation for people like you. So now I'm going to touch on a question, but after I answer this question, I'm happy for you to jump in and ask me a couple more. But this question was sent to me yesterday ahead of this session, and it says, I've seen so many test captains or team captains over my time. Do I have a favourite? And what do I think is the most important trait that makes a leader and makes them, you know, something special, or gives them a point of difference on the field of play? The first thing I'd say is I have no favourites. As a cricket umpire, that's a really dangerous thing, is to have some favourites. So I never do that. But I'm going to mention 4. Some of you, and this will maybe come as a bit of a surprise to you, but the first person I'm going to talk about is George Bailey. Now, why would I mention George Bailey? Because he's a very good cricketer, but he's probably not someone that you would think that I would necessarily talk about. But George had a very interesting philosophy on captaincy. And that is that you really need to be a fantastic captain between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 a.m. rather than 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So what do you think he means by that, and why would I say that? Is because it's off the field, it's around the team, it's when you're not in the heat of battle that perhaps sometimes the captain can have the biggest difference, that sometimes the captain can have the biggest influence on their people, and be able to build the relationships and get to understand their players a lot more off the field than rather than the heat of battle. Because once you're out on the field, there's probably not a lot that a captain can do from time to time. So George put a lot of his captaincy focus about what he could do with his people outside of game day rather than on game day. And I find that really interesting, and I hope you might learn something from that. I'm going to just mention Mark Taylor here briefly. Why would I mention Mark Taylor? Because his leadership skills were all about serving the cause. He would always, in my mind, he did a couple of things really well. Number one, he offered a lot of constructive feedback. He just didn't tell us what we got wrong, but he offered us a lot of constructive feedback with a view to helping the umpires improve their performance. Because he's very much a strong servant of the game. And he captained in a way that it was all about winning the game. Not defending the game, but about winning the game. And he was a captain that always was prepared to lose the game to win. And what do I mean by that? Well, he declared overnight on an equal score with Don Bradman of 334, rather than go back and bat the following day and pass Bradman's score, because he felt it was really important to give his bowlers enough time to bowl the opposition out. So team success came first. And good leaders, good captains, always put the team objective ahead of their own. And I'll come back to that in a sec. And then the third one that I'd like to touch on is Mahela Jayawardena. And I put Mahela in here because, for me, I always found it fascinating listening to him in a post-match conference. When the team won, he would give the credit to his players, his bowlers, his batsmen who performed well. And when the team lost, he took responsibility for the loss. He didn't blame his team. He took personal responsibility for that. And great leaders, great captains always take responsibility for what's not working. And so I mentioned those three. But here's a kicker. Hopefully you can recognise this guy. I spoke to him early last year after he just won in Australia for the first time in 71 years. And he gave me 3 or 4 main messages that I'd love to share with you. It's really important from a leader's perspective that not only do they try to be the best that they can be and to be themselves, but it's also important that they lead by example. And I think it's fair to say that this India team that you're seeing now is probably the fittest and most agile team in many, many years. And I think that's because Virat leads by example in that area. And I think the next thing that is really important is he doesn't ask his people to do things that he would not do himself. And I think that's a really important quality as a leader. The other thing is that what comes out in this statement on screen is his humility. Is that there's no sense of entitlement here. And Virat is really starting to mature as a leader, and he's starting to really show a lot of humility. And I'll give you another very quick example. I was at the pink ball test match in Calcutta in November of last year, lucky enough to be there. And at the end of the game, when he was given the trophy and he finished his press conference and the team were over off on the side, already waiting for Virat to come with the trophy and to take the team photograph, you would have expected perhaps Virat to go and stand in the middle with the trophy and to be the centre of attention. On this occasion, he chose not to. He gave the trophy to a member of the squad who actually didn't play in the game, who was in the middle. And then Virat went to stand on the side with the team support staff to take the photograph as such. So it was not about Virat Kohli. It was about the team. And again, that humility coming through is a really, really important quality, because a leader is only as successful as their followers allow them to be. And Virat put his team first, and I think that's really important. Look, mental preparation is so big, but good leaders actually think about the game and they tend to be in front of the game. And Virat is certainly someone there. But for me, this is a really important one that I'd love you to think about too, is that as you go through university life and you put a lot of effort in your preparation, it's really important that preparation gives you confidence and self-belief to be able to feel as though you're ready for challenge and then trust yourself. And having that self-belief is really, really important to just get out there and do what you've got to do. So, Bharat, are there any other questions you'd like to ask on behalf of yourself or the audience at this stage?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. I think audience have gotten in, and there's some overlap between what you've already covered. So I'll try to take questions that you haven't covered. And one question was, if you weren't an umpire, what would you do?
Well, when I started that university degree, I was always anticipating that I'd be someone involved in economics or commerce. Not quite sure where I was going to be, but I really loved economics as a subject at school. And I loved playing the share market. So maybe I might have found myself in the futures exchange or at the stock market, who knows? But that's probably where I might have ended up.
Understood. Thank you. And there's a lot of people who want you to be a predictor of the future. They're asking you, who do you think will be the IPL 2020 winner?
Whenever people ask me those questions, I always say, well, I know the umpiring team's going to be there in the final, so my money's on the umpiring team.
And we recently had a big moment in Indian cricket history when MS Dhoni retired. And there's a lot of our students asking questions about Dhoni and what your relationship with him was, and what kind of acumen did he sort of show on the field, and our experiences with him. I think they'd love to hear that.
Yeah, look, MS is quite a special person, and I'll tell you why. And this is fairly common amongst, you know, all the major stars that I've come into contact with and worked with at the Indian elite level. You know, whether it's Rahul Dravid, Anil Kumble, MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli, Virendra Sehwag, Sachin Tendulkar. You know, there's lots of names I've missed and skipped over here. Yuvraj Singh also comes to mind. Rohit Sharma. They are tremendously well-grounded people. They are very easy to talk to. I think they really understand their role within Indian cricket, and they're not overburdened by the responsibility of representing 1.2 billion people every time they go out to play cricket. But they are genuine people to talk to, and I'm very lucky that, say, with an MS Dhoni, for me, he was a very easy captain to work with. He wasn't in your face a lot. He didn't complain about a lot. He didn't get unnecessarily upset. So when MS said something, I tended to listen, because it took a lot for him to get upset, or it took a lot for him to speak up and say something. And MS was the type of character for me that if you did your job well and you just focused on what you had to do and you gave him and the team space to just get on with their job, in other words, you got out of their way, then I think you had a very good working relationship. And I didn't have to say a lot to MS, or I'd only have to look at him, or, you know, remind him that there was a match referee up there ready to take some money off him. What did he want to do? And he responded, and he listened. He was a good listener. So MS for me is someone who, he's pretty private and pretty, you know, he doesn't put himself out there a lot, but he also, he does what he wants to do. And again, I think that's a really important quality, is that while he might have a lot of external pressure and expectation from other people, he's got that sense of belief to stay in control and do what he wants to do. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Simon. And there's a bunch of questions, but one thing that's in my screen right now, Harsha is asking, when an umpire takes a decision and it's overturned by DRS, how does the umpire feel? And this is related to another question that I saw, which is about what is the future of umpiring with the advent of technology, and what do you foresee?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because for most umpires, in fact, I'm yet to meet an umpire, and I've come across a lot in my time. Most of us, if not all of us, are driven by fear. And maybe the students can connect with this through sport, is that we fear when we go out to umpire a game of cricket, that's our exam. You know, that's our assignment, that's our test. And we're driven by fear. We're fear of making a mistake, or fear of looking bad, or getting something wrong. And it's a very negative mindset from which to start from. Or it could be, you know, I remember crossing the rope sometimes and saying, gee, I hope if Patan doesn't bowl from my end, you know, left arm or into the pads. Or I hope that Murali doesn't bowl from my end to begin the game with lots of LBW decisions. And that's a very negative mindset to go with. So I'd encourage people to think about, and the students to think about, flipping that around and wanting the decision to come to them, wanting the tough question to come to them, to look forward to the challenge and feeling as though they're ready to deal with the challenge. But in terms of DRS, you know, when you make a decision and the player does that, and they do it quickly and you think, gee, have I got that wrong? Have I seen that the wrong way? And then you go upstairs and you say to your colleague, Murray, we've got a challenge for LBW. The only problem I've got is impact. Over to you. And when Murray works through those replays for 60 to 120 seconds, it's the longest period of your life while you watch your decision dissected on the big screen in front of thousands of people, but also millions at home, waiting to find out and get that instant feedback whether you got it right or you got it wrong. Now, I umpired half my career pre-DRS and half post-DRS. Before DRS, I could make my decision and try to park it and move on and just focus on the next ball and deal with it later on. But when you're in DRS, you get that instant feedback, and there's nothing worse than putting your arms across your chest and having to change your decision and admit a mistake in front of millions of people. And that's a big shift and a big change to try to get comfortable with, you know. But then the game's not about the umpires, it's about the players, and it's about giving correct decisions. And so we've had to learn how to adapt to that new feeling of doing that, or feeling a little bit aggrieved that a player is actually challenging a decision when the umpire's decision always stood. And that's something new that we've had to work our way through. So, you know, dealing with fear is really challenging. Having your integrity questioned, perhaps, by players challenging decisions is a new way of thinking. But then having that ability to deal with that instant feedback and then focus completely on the next ball and not worry about what people are saying, it's tough. And that's why the best in the world make the fewest amounts of mistakes.
I think that's great feedback, and the approach, I think, is very critical, because even in India, and especially when it comes to maybe an example between becoming an entrepreneur or getting employment or becoming a sports person or just getting into a regular life, a lot of the times you're cautioned against failure, right? And that's where you're operating from a place of fear. And I like that you say that you want to be in the place where you're taking tough decisions. You're not worried about the outcome, but you want to face that. I think that's what we would like to see in our students as well.
Spot on. Our job is to make decisions, and we need to embrace that challenge. And as you say, we need to embrace making mistakes, because by only making mistakes do we really get better. Do we really learn the lessons and build that experience necessary to keep going further and to keep challenging ourselves and keep performing better.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And there's a couple of questions about the toughest decision that you've ever taken, or the toughest game that you've been part of as an umpire. If you can remember any of that.
I'm going to show you a video shortly of probably my toughest game from a pressure perspective, and maybe I'll answer that question then.
Okay. So we'll come back to that then.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
And so you're an umpire. You're expected to be unbiased. You're expected to be very objective about all of your decisions. But are you also an audience member? Do you enjoy watching the game? And and how does that happen when you're standing as an umpire in the game?
No, I don't. I don't enjoy watching cricket. In fact, when I watch cricket, I tend to watch the umpires if I'm watching it all. You know, because for me, my style of officiating was to be quite clinical and quite disconnected from the game itself. I found it easier not getting emotionally involved in what was happening in the contest, and just really keep it pretty clinical, keep it pretty disconnected, looking at the ball, a set of pads, and watching the play that's in front of me, not watching the scoreboard, not caring who's batting and who's bowling. So when I watch cricket now, I don't get emotionally involved still. I just watch the technique and I watch the ability of the officials, because I keep putting my umpire and my training or my coaching hat on and thinking about what would I do, or how could I help them, or what can I learn from what they're doing? It's a good question. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And another is I mean, you've been in different environments all across the world, but particularly in India, when and also in big match games when the stadium is full of people, right? And you've got noise all around. And how do you deal with that pressure? How do you, when there's thousands? I mean, yes, you know that millions are watching you, but that's different from 50,000, 60,000 people sitting in the audience in the stadium and being very loud and being very reactive. How do you deal with that?
So, semi-final 2011, India versus Pakistan, Mohali. You can imagine the amount of pressure of the event, not just on the players, but the broadcasters, the curator, the ground staff, and then of course the umpires. You know, and for me, what was really important was, yeah, look, it was great to be appointed to that game. India, Pakistan, this is not just a game of cricket. It's something bigger. It's a big event. And there's a lot of external pressure that can happen from that event. And there's also a lot of internal pressure that happens when you put, you know, that expectation on yourself that you just don't want to make a mistake and you want to perform extremely well. But if we can just break down this pressure question a little bit, and I would love the students to think about this, that pressure only exists when you care what other people think. Pressure only exists when you care what other people think. So whether that's mum, dad, your lecturers, you know, they will put pressure on you when you're worried about what they think. And you'll put pressure on yourself when you overly care about what you think. And what that pressure does, it restricts our ability, because we're thinking about what other people want us to do, or we're thinking about what we want to do, rather than just go and do it. We've put in the hard work, we've put in the preparation, we've got the proven ability to be able to do it. Let's just go and do it. And so sometimes when we put too much pressure on ourselves, or we feel that external pressure, is that we can't actually perform freely. And we get these physical responses, and some of the people that are listening to this podcast will probably connect with this, hopefully, is that you feel your muscles start to tight, you feel like your throat's getting a bit dry, you feel like your palms are starting to sweat, and you're getting these physiological responses to the pressure, and your heart rate's starting to go up. You can imagine for myself being Gould in the middle of that ground, when Sachin Tendulkar comes out to bat and we're feeling the pressure of India on our back about not getting his decision wrong, when we start thinking like that, we're not actually focusing on the right things at the right time, because we're imagining that pressure and allowing that pressure to come into our world. When we don't care what the other people think outside the ground and we just watch the ball and we do what we've got to do, the game becomes easier. So my advice here to you when you think about pressure is, how do we embrace the nerves? How do we use the nerves to actually give us that adrenaline, give us that spark, that little bit of energy? And nerves show us that we care, which is great. But when those nerves go too far and they become all-encompassing, or they start to give us those physiological responses, that's not what we want. And so what we've got to do, and I've given you a couple of tips here on the screen, is we just go back to our routines. So if you're in an exam and you're starting to feel that pressure of, oh, I want to get a good mark, I want to get a good mark, well, go back to your routine. What's your routine look like? Read the question, answer the question. Read the question, pick out the key words, plan your response, answer the question. When you've answered that question, go on to the next question. Read the question, plan your response, answer the question, go on to the next question. And for me to umpire a test match, I can't walk out there at the start and think that I've got 5 days, 30 sessions, 15 hours to get through, 15 sessions to get through, 30 hours to get through. I've got to break it down into bite-sized chunks and focus on my process. Because when things go wrong, I'm going to go back to that process anyway. So what's your examination process? What's your process to get through a day, whether it's on campus or off campus? And sport will teach you that process. It'll teach you how to prepare. It will teach you how to feel comfortable and to increase your confidence, because the best in the world do the simple things to an excellent standard consistently well all the time. They do the simple things well to an excellent standard all the time. The other tip that I want to focus on here is to remain connected with the moment. We're not thinking about the past. We're not thinking about the last mistake or the last ball or the last boundary or the last good decision. That's gone. Can't change it. It's gone. We're not thinking about the future, what the commentators are going to say tomorrow, what they're going to write in the newspaper, what mum and dad are going to say about my result. We're staying connected with the moment. All we can do is to answer this question or umpire this ball in the moment. All we can do. And when we've done that, we go on to the next one. And when we go on, we go on to the next one. And from an umpire's perspective, when we run out of balls, we call over and time and we go home. So it's really important from a pressure perspective not to get distracted by what happened last and not to get distracted by what's going to happen in the future, because it hasn't happened yet. And most of us spend too much time worrying about stuff in the future that is probably not going to happen. So worry about that when it does, but stay connected with the moment. The other thing that you can do is deflect the pressure onto other people. A lot of people put pressure on us. So your parents might put pressure on you to get a certain result. Or in my world in sport, the player might be putting pressure on me by being too close on the front foot. You know, Glenn McGrath, Sean Pollock were two bowlers that were always tight on the front line. I put the pressure back on the bowler. Glenn, if you take a wicket now, we're going straight upstairs to check the front foot and you probably won't get a wicket. Or if you keep bowling there, I'm going to call a no ball and you'll have to re-bowl it. What do you want to do? Do you want to call a no ball? Do you want to re-bowl the ball? Do you want to lose the wicket? Or do you want to come back? I don't mind, but tell me what you want to do. So rather than me accept all that pressure from what the player's doing, I'm putting the pressure back on them to make it their decision as to what they want me to do. Keep me out of the game. I don't want to be involved in the game. Keep me out of the game. And if you don't get anything out of that, slow down and breathe. So when you feel those physiological responses, when you're starting to think about the future or you're remembering what happens in the past, hang on a sec, just slow down. And for me, my technique was to look at my hands. My hands are in the middle of this cricket ground. That's where I want my mind to be, in the middle of this cricket ground. Not 5 minutes ago, not half an hour later, but right here, right now. So connect with your hands and recenter your mind and recenter your thoughts and slow down and breathe. Just take a deep breath before you answer that next question.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. One question is something that probably you have been expecting. One of the biggest movements in the last few years is the overthrow decision in the 2019 Cricket World Cup.
Yeah.
When Kumar Dharmasena and Erasmus were the umpires, and we were sad that India didn't make it to the final, but that was a crazy game. And what would you have done? And what is your view on that incident overall?
I don't know what I would have done because I wasn't there, but what it did teach me is that, and hopefully what it shows the students is that umpires make hundreds of decisions every ball, not just the outs and not outs. We make hundreds of decisions, but it goes back to that process I was talking about. And whenever I'm looking in the field and I see a fielder throw a ball, part of my process is to know where the batsmen are when that throw happens, just in case there's an overthrow. So we have to be watching the right things at the right time, because that's where technique and process comes into itself.
We have an interesting question. Dr. Amit Kumar is asking, when a batsman scores any run, the umpire just declares the runs, batsman doesn't have to ask for it. But when a bowler takes a wicket, why should he ask? Why should he claim the wicket? Why can't the umpire just tell him that you got it?
No, because there's a law called appeals, and for the batsman to be given out by the umpire as opposed to being dismissed, But for an umpire to give a batsman out, there has to be an appeal. And you'll notice there are various forms of dismissals, but there is no direct appeal to an umpire. There is just a celebration of the dismissal. So if someone's caught in the outfield, there is no appeal, but there's a celebration of the dismissal. And there is this distinction between the two, and I hope that makes sense.
Got it. And the other is you've umpired across formats, T20s, ODIs, Test matches.
Yep.
And what are the differences you've experienced as an umpire? What do you like more? What don't you like as much? Yeah, I think it's a Test match. Then you're standing for 8 hours a day for 5 days, which isn't great. But leaving the physical stress aside.
But would you like to go to work for 5 days a week or 3 hours?
What is that?
Would you like to go to work for 5 days a week, or would you like to have a 3-hour day? You know,
like a 3-hour day.
For me, T20 cricket is like fast food cricket. It's very quick. It's easily consumed, but sometimes you get a little bit of indigestion because you've consumed it too quickly. I don't think too many people remember too many T20 matches because there's a lot of them, and they are like fast food cricket. But I think more people will remember Test matches and, you know, great comebacks or great innings or great tactics and the ebb and flow of the game. And for the purest form of cricket, which is Test cricket, the vast majority of players and umpires and fans that I come into contact with love Test cricket, but it's a longer form of the game. It's a 5-course meal, you know, it's quite a long thing to digest. And what I do know and what I can tell you is, regardless of the format, T20, one day or Test match cricket, if we have good competition between two great teams, it doesn't matter what the format is, people will love it and people will watch it and people will enjoy it. But for me, I love Test cricket because it's a true test of your mind, body, stamina, resilience. It's just the ultimate, and that's the challenge that I love.
And I think you've spoken about some of the mental elements and how do you deal with pressure and decision making. But what are the other top skills that make you or makes anyone a very good umpire?
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me flick through to that if I can. So this was a question that was thrown at me, and I'm giving you two here. One is humility, and this is a picture of me with a former Test umpire from New South Wales, Ted Wykes. He did one Test match, but he must have officiated, I think he officiated 60-odd first-class matches in a row at the SCG. And why do I use that picture of Ted Wykes? Is because, for me, the skill of humility, the attribute of humility, and what I mean by that is you don't know it all. You have less ego to the point where you're prepared to listen to other people. You are prepared to ask questions from people who may know more than you do, and you're prepared to not think that you know it all. And Ted was the epitome of that for me because he spoke about the apprenticeship. And it's really important whether you're a cricket umpire, a player, a teacher, an educator, doesn't matter. You need to do the apprenticeship. You need to make as many mistakes as you can make. You need to learn as much as you can from other people and try and apply their knowledge to your game and see whether that improves what you do to be the best you can be. The other quality that I'd like to touch on is just to be a really good person. And I use David Shepherd in this space. David Shepherd is well regarded around the world, and both of these gentlemen are no longer with us. But David was someone special for me because he taught me the value of being a good person, because he was able to have respectful relationships with people from different parts of the world, different teams, different age groups. And at the end of the day, as a cricket umpire, as a father, as a brother, as someone who works in the sporting industry, the one thing that I'm very fortunate that I hold dear to me is the respect of other people. And for me to be able to connect with a Ravi Ashwin, a Virat Kohli, a Sachin Tendulkar, an Anil Kumble, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's not about name dropping, but it's about having respectful relationships with people where you are able to continue that relationship well past what we do. So think about that, and hopefully that helps.
On a lighter note, Simon, there's a few questions on what's your favorite Indian food and your favorite place to visit in India, to get to know a little bit more about.
Yep, my favourite food over the last couple of years has been dal makhani, black dal. I love it. Really nice, a nice plain naan bread with that, and some rice would be fantastic. That'd be my favourite dish at the moment. What I enjoy about India in terms of location is just like Australia, that all the states are pretty much different, and I really enjoy the diversity from down south around the Chennai area, right up north to Himachal Pradesh. It's fantastic. I really like Chandigarh as well. You know, the vibrant city of Mumbai, the city that doesn't go to sleep pretty much, the leafy greenness of Bangalore, and I also enjoy going to Nagpur, funny enough. You know, being in the centre of India and being able to have some great oranges in that part of the world. But I love the diversity of food, and I love the different cultures as we travel around all of India.
Great, great. Thanks, Simon. I think we're at the end of the hour, and we really enjoyed hearing from you. Arun, can you close out the session, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much, Bharat, as well. I think it's been an amazing 1 hour. I mean, there were so many important things that you spoke about, Simon, which is not important just for the student. I mean, it is something that anyone should probably, you know, take it into their, at least something that they inculcate into their lives. And be it, you know, simple things being done well and consistently, or living in the present. You know, all of these are such important but simple lessons that is going to make us better people, you know, happier people more than anything else. And to that end, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and giving suggestions for students, which is very, very important. Coping with pressure is something that every single student, you know, kind of experiences, and just taking a few pointers from what you've said into their lives, into, you know, their going into exams, I think will definitely help. And thank you so much for your time as well. I hope the students and the staff who've attended the session, you know, have a few things that they can take home. And thanks, Bharat, for sparing time and being a part of the session and asking some really interesting questions, and picking up questions from the audience as well. With that, we come to the end of GITAM Sports Week 2020 edition. And we do definitely hope to, you know, getting back in touch with you, Simon, maybe, you know, sometime when things are normal, we can definitely invite you into one of our campuses, and we can have a more physical interaction for sure.
There you go.
Thank you, Arun. Thanks, Simon, for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Great initiative. Wish you well. Stay safe. And please take that one takeaway that Arun was talking about. Take that one takeaway and do your best with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
धन्यवाद, शुक्रिया. फिर मिलेंगे.
बिल्कुल.
फिर मिलेंगे.